Whoa, good job, everyone. So tonight, it gives me great pleasure to present to you for Shabbos. I feel like Ed Sullivan here. Cantor called Jonathan Angress, all the way from Phoenix. And we will have a reception after the service tonight. So I'm very, very happy to see all the seats filled, or not all of them, but a lot. Anyway, pretty good turnout. Thank you for being here tonight. Again, it's my pleasure to present Jonathan Angress, called Cantor candidate.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for being here, spending Shabbat with us. We are going to get started with our Kabbalat Shabbat service, and so I would like to invite everyone to please open up your Siddur, and let us turn together on page 10. We will begin Kabbalat Shabbat with an introductory song, an introductory prayer. Yedid Nefesh, please sing along as you are able. Yedid Nefesh, Amarach Amar, Meshoch Avdach, El Ritzot Lach, Yarus Avdach, Kemo Ayal, Yishtaveh El Mul Hadara, Yediduta, Dino Let us turn now to page 11. We will sing together Lechu and Ranana. Let us go and sing to God. Let us trumpet praise to our protector. Filled with thanks, let us greet God, raising our voice in song. Lechu meranena, lechu meranena, lechu meranena, l'Adonai. Lechu meranena, lechu meranena, lechu meranena, l'Adonai. Naria, Naria, Mitsuri Shenu, Nekadma Fanav Letonav. Naria, Naria, Mitsuri Shenu, Bismirot Naria Lo. Lechu meranena, lechu meranena, lechu meranena, l'Adonai. Lechu meranena, lechu meranena, lechu meranena, l'Adonai. And I invite everyone now to turn to page 14. And we will sing an excerpt from the end of Psalm 96. The heavens shall be glad and the earth rejoice, the sea in its fullness roar. Yismechu Hashamayim, page 14. Yismechu Hashamayim, Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, V'tagel haaretz. Yismechu Hashamayim, Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, V'tagel haaretz. Hiram hayam, Hiram hayam, Hiram hayam, Kulo. Hiram hayam, Hiram hayam, Hiram hayam, Kulo. Yismechu Hashamayim, Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, V'tagel haaretz. And as we continue now, let us sing together Romemu on page 20. Exalt Adonai our God and bow down at his holy mountain, for Adonai our God is holy. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'nishtachavu Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'hishtakavu lehar kodo. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'hishtakavu lehar kodo. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. And as we turn to page 21 for Psalm 29, Mizmor LeDavid, I invite everyone to please rise in your place if you are able to, and let us sing together Mizmor LeDavid. Mizmor LeDavid, Havul Adonai b'nei Elim, Havul Adonai kavod ba'oz, Havul Adonai kevod shemo yishtach, Havul Adonai behadrat kodesh, Kol Adonai al hamayim, el hakavod nirim, Adonai al mayim rabim, lai, Kol Adonai v'koach, Kol Adonai behadrat, Kol Adonai shover harazim v'yishaber Adonai et hazeh albanot. Vayar Kidei, O Egel, Lebanon Besirion, Kemo Be'eim, Lai, Kol Adonai, Kol Le'avotesh, Kol Adonai, Yachil Midbar, Yachil Adonai, Midbar Kadesh, Kol Adonai, Yechol Elayalot. Vayecheso Ye'aron Uveheichalo Kulo Omer Kavod Lai Adonai Lachavu Yashav Vayeshev Adonai Melech Leolam Adonai Oz Le'amo Yitchen Adonai Yivavech et Amo Shalom. You may be seated. We will continue now with Lecha Dodi, which can be found on pages 23 through pages 25. We will sing together the first two stanzas on page 23, the middle stanza on page 24, and then the final stanza on page 25. And when we get to that last stanza, I will invite everyone to rise if they are able at that point and face the entrance of our sanctuary to welcome Shabbat. Pages 23 through 25. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. 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 Shamor v'sachor v'yibor echad, ishmi'anu el meyuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, l'shem tiferet v'litila la 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 la, lecha dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi, likrat Shabbat mekabela, לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי מקור הברכה, מראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחמד החילה, לה 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 לה, לך דודי, לקראת קלה, פני שבת מקבלה, לך דודי, לקראת קלה, פני שבת מקבלה. Middle of page 24. Eat oreri, ki ba'orech umiori, uri, shir daveri, kevod Adonai alayich, nigla la 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 lecha dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat mekabela, lecha dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat mekabela. Please rise if you are able and face the entrance of the sanctuary to welcome Shabbat. Boi v'shalom ateret bala, gam b'simcha u'v'tola, toch emunei am segula, boi kala, la 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 lehadodi, likrat kala, penei mekabela, lecha dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat mekabela, la 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 lecha dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat mekabela, lecha dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat mekabela. La 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 la. You may be seated. As I understand it, I think as we all understand, that there's always multiple ways to do a service. There's always multiple ways to sing a tune, a different melody that can be used for so many different prayers. The joke about Adon Olam, for example, is that almost any tune can be done to Adon Olam. Lecha Dodi is one of those that fits in that same category. And the tune that I just used, which was written by Craig Talman out of LA, of Friday Night Live fame, is one of those tunes that I have a very interesting story I want to share with you about. In my very first full-time cantorial position, which was in Florida, it was actually at my grandparents' synagogue. I was there for about a month, and after one of our Friday night services, a congregant came to me and said, "Cantor, I'm so happy that you're here, but tell me, why is it that you don't always do the traditional melody for Lecha Dodi?" And I said to this congregant, I said, "Well, I would love to do the traditional melody for Lecha Dodi, but can you tell me what the traditional melody for Lecha Dodi is?" And this congregant sang the one that we just did. Let me tell you that Craig Talman wrote that Lecha Dodi in 1985. So the idea of tradition, I think, is definitely objective to all of us. The actual definition of tradition is something that is passed on from one person to another. So it may not have come directly from Mount Sinai. It may not have come directly, thousands of years ago. But if I have something that I give to you that is a tradition, even if it started 5 minutes ago, if something that our parents gave to us that was brand new in their lifetime, then becomes the next generation's tradition, the next generation legacy. So let's hang on to this idea that there are different definitions of tradition, just as there are different definitions and different tunes for the prayers, different ways to do a service as we move forward into Shabbat together and throughout this weekend. Let us turn to page 27, and we will sing sections, the beginning and the end of the Psalm for Shabbat. Mizmor shir yom HaShabbat, tov lehodot l'Adonai, ulzamer l'shimcha elyon, ulzamer l'shimcha elyon. Mizmor shir yom HaShabbat, tov lehodot l'Adonai, ulzamer l'shimcha elyon, ulzamer l'shimcha elyon. להגיד בבוקר חסדך ואמונתך בלילות, עלי עשור ועלי נמל, עלי היגיון בכינור. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. The righteous flourish like the date palm, thrive like a cedar in Lebanon. Planted in the house of Adonai, they flourish in our God's courtyard. In old age they remain fruitful, still fresh and bountiful, proclaiming Adonai is upright, my rock, in whom there is no flaw. Please let's sing together on page 28, where the little arrow is, Sadik Katamar. Sadik Katamar Yifra Ke'erez Balvanon Yizke Shetulim Bebeit Adonai Bechaterot Eloheinu Yafridu. Oh, Eduvun Beseva Deshenim Bera'ananim Yiyu Lehagid Ki Ashar Adonai Tsuri Tsuri Velo Avlatabo. And at this time, I would like to invite those that are in mourning or observing a yurtzeit or saying Kaddish to rise at this time if you are able to. We will recite the first of two mourners' Kaddishes this evening. Later on in the service, when we recite the mourners' Kaddish at the end, we will read the names of those in our community that we remember. But first, the first mourners' Kaddish on page 30. Yit Gadal ve'yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah Be'alma Divara Pirutei Ve'amlich Malutei Be'chayechon V'yomechon Uve'chayei Dechol Beit Yisrael Ba'agala U'bizman Kariv V'imru Amen. Yehei Shemei Rabbah Mevarach Le'alam Olamei Almeh. Yitbarach ve'yishtach ve'yitpa'ar ve'yitromam ve'yitmaseh. Ve'yithadar ve'yithaleh ve'yithalal Shemei Dekudesha Barichu. Leila Mikol Birchata V'Shirata, Tushbechata V'Nechama, Da'amiran Be'alma V'imru Amen. Yehi Shalama Rabba Min Shemaya, V'Chaim Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael V'imru Amen. Oseh Shalom Romav, Hu Ya'aseh Shalom Aleinu Al Kol Yisrael V'imru Amen. In a moment, we will continue with Mari's service, but I do want to share with you real quick, as I mentioned before, different traditions, different ways to do things. As all of you just experienced, we had Kabbalat Shabbat together, not just singing, not just anecdotes, not just English, but also with the guitar. There are different customs about using musical instruments on Shabbat. As I understand, the custom here at Bnai Israel is that they are used sometimes on Friday nights. I want to show you different ways of how I can do a service. So for the Mariv service, I will actually put the guitar away, and there'll still be plenty of singing and plenty of engagement. But I want to show those of you that are here this evening, and especially those who may not be able to make it tomorrow morning, how else a service can be done. So give me one moment. Okay, at point, now that everybody's comfortably seated, I'm going to ask you to rise again, please, if you are able to. On page 39A, we'll continue with the Mariv service. La da 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 da, la da 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 da, la da 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 da, la 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 da da da, la da da la da 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 da, la da 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 da. Baruch et Adonai Hamevorach. Baruch Adonai Hamevorach Leolam Vaed. La da 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 da, la da 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 da, la da 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 da. You may be seated. Baruch atah Adonai, our God, sovereign of time and space, whose word brings the even dusk, whose wisdom opens the gates of dawn, whose understanding changes the day's division, whose will sets the succession of seasons and arranges the stars in their places in the sky, who creates day and night, who rolls light before darkness and darkness from light, makes day pass into night, who distinguishes day from night. Adonai Tsevaot is your name, living and ever-present God. May your rule be with us forever and ever. Baruch atah Adonai, who brings each evening's dusk. U'ma'avir yom u'mevih layla, u'mavdil ben yom u'ben layla, Adonai Tsevaot shemo, el chai v'kayam, tamid yimloch aleinu leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai, hamahariv aravim. Page 40, let us sing together, Ahavat Olam. Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael, Amecha ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu li'madeta. Al kein Adonai Eloheinu, בשוכבנו ובקומנו, נשיח בחוקך, ונשמח בדברי תורתך, ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו באורך ימינו, באורך ימינו, ובהם נגב יומם ולילה, יומם ולילה. ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים, ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל. The Shema, page 41. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavecha ubechol nafshecha ubechol me'odecha. Ve'hayu hadevarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha ve'shinantam levanecha ve'dibarta bam ve'shivtecha bebeitecha uvelechtecha baderech uve'shoftecha uvkumecha וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. We will continue silently in the Hebrew or English on the top of page 42, and then we will join together and chant the bottom of page 42 in a moment. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe lemor, daber el Bnei Yisrael ve'amarta alehem ve'asu lahem tzitzit al kanfei videhem ledorotam ve'natenu al tzitzit hakanaf petil techelet ve'haya lachem letzitzit uritem oto uzkartem et kol mitzvot Adonai va'asitem otam ve'lo taturu acharei levavechem ve'acharei einechem asher atem zonim achareihem למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מיתותי והייתם קדושים אלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם Adonai Elohechem Emet. This is our enduring affirmation binding on us that Adonai is our God and there is none other. And we, Israel, are God's people. God is our sovereign, redeeming us from earthly rulers, delivering us from the hand of all tyrants, bringing judgment upon our oppressors, and just retribution upon all our moral enemies, performing wonders beyond understanding and marvels beyond all reckoning. We will continue now on page 44 at the top. ומלכותו ברצון קיבלו עליהם משה ובני ישראל לכנו שירה בשמחה רבה ואמרו כולם מי כמוך באלים אדוני מי כמוך נאר בקודש נורא תהילות עושה פלא מלכותך ראו בניך בוקע ים לפני משה זה אלי אנו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל. I am now going to use another one of those traditional tunes from 1985, again by Craig Taubman for Hashkivenu. On page 45, we will sing the first couple of verses. The way that the melody is written, it actually jumps down to where the arrow is, towards the bottom of the Hebrew paragraph. So we will sing those sections together, and then we can read together English at the top of the page. On the left-hand side, page 45, Hashkivenu. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom ve'amidenu malkeinu lechaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom ve'amidenu malkeinu lechaim ushmor seitenu uvoeinu lechaim ulshalom me'ata ve'ad olam. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom ve'hamidenu malkeinu lechaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom ve'hamidenu malkeinu lechaim. Please join me on the left-hand side as we read together. Allow us, Adonai our God, to sleep peacefully. Awaken us to life, O Sovereign. Spread over us your canopy of peace. Restore us with your good counsel. And save us for the sake of your name. Shield us. Shelter us in the shadow of your wings. For you, God, watch over and deliver us. And you, God, are sovereign, merciful, and compassionate. Ensure our going and coming for life and peace, now and forever. May you spread over us your canopy of peace. Baruch atah Adonai, who spreads the canopy of peace over us, over all the people Israel, and over Jerusalem. Uforos aleinu sukat shelomecha, Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim. Let us turn now to page 46. And I invite everyone to please rise if you are able. We will continue with Veshamru and Chatzi Kaddish. Top of the page. Veshamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat le'dorotam berit olam. Veshamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat le'dorotam berit olam. Beini u'bein b'nei Yisrael oti le'olam, oti le'olam, oti le'olam. Veshamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat le'dorotam berit olam. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא יברך חירותי בהמליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבם מברך לעלם לעלמי עלמיה, יתברך, יתברך וישתבח, ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, תאמירן בעלמא ואמרו Amen. We will now continue with the private silent Amidah for Erev Shabbat, which begins on page 47. Tonight is not just Shabbat, but it is also Rosh Chodesh, which begins this evening, Rosh Chodesh Elul, to usher in the high holiday season. So please remember to insert at the top portion of page 50, Ya'aleh v'Yavo, the insertion for Rosh Chodesh. Grant abundant and lasting peace to your people Israel and all who dwell on earth, for you are the sovereign master of all the ways of peace. May it please you to bless your people Israel at all times with your gift of peace. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amecha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amecha Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech adon lechol shalom. Ki atahu melech adon lechol shalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amecha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amecha Tasim Leolam. V'tov be'einecha levarech et Amecha Yisrael bechol eit uvechol sha'a bishlomecha. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amecha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amecha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Let's turn to page 54. We will continue with the full Kash. Yitkadal vitkadash me'rabah. Be'almadi v'rach yiruteh v'malchuteh v'chayechon v'mechon v'chayechon v'Yisrael v'agalav v'zman karim me'ru. Amen. Shemei Rabba me'barach le'alam le'alam Yitbarach Yitbarach v'yishabach v'aramam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitale v'yithalal shmei d'kudesha b'richu le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata damim be'alma v'imeru. Amen. Titkabal tzolotahon v'atahon d'chol Yisrael kodama v'hon di v'shmaya v'imeru. Amen. Ye'eshlam rabba min shamay v'chaim alinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imeru. Amen. Ose shalom imroma v'yase shalom alinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imeru. Amen. A fiddler on the roof. Sounds crazy, no? But here in our little village of Anatevka, you might say every one of us is a fiddler on the roof, trying to scratch out a pleasant, simple tune without breaking his neck. It isn't easy. You may ask, why do we stay there if it's so dangerous? We stay because Anatevka is our home. And how do we keep our balance? That I can tell you in one word: tradition. For as far back as I can remember, I've always been enamored by a memory of seeing a local youth production in Florida starring my cousin of Fiddler on the Roof. As legend would have it, I became obsessed with the image of a violinist sitting on a rooftop playing what I later came to learn is a tune of our people. So, my parents rented me the double videotape of the film version, and eventually, at a family friend recorded on to a single VHS. Yes, folks, I may look young, but I am at least still part of the VHS generation. Once I had a copy of Fiddler of my own, I watched it religiously on a daily basis. There was a point as a child where I could recite the entire movie by heart. But my obsession with Fiddler did not end there. In no time, I made it known to my parents that I wanted to learn to play the violin. Why? Because I wanted to be just like the actual Fiddler on the Roof. Luckily, a distant cousin had a student violin that he lent us, and I promptly began violin lessons. I was 6 years old, and now, nearly 3 decades later, I am still playing the violin. The violin, unbeknownst to me, became a vital tool in helping me develop the full extent of my musical sensibilities. In order to play the violin well, one must develop a good musical and in-tune ear. This, in turn, is what helped me develop my ability to sing, a skill I did not know I had until I began to study for my bar mitzvah. Growing up in a very large, traditional, conservative shul of over 1,500 members and hundreds upon hundreds of children in the religious school, it would be very easy to blend in with the crowd, or so I thought. Because of my musical ability and because I was one of very few, if not the only child, who enjoyed learning about Judaism and attending services regularly, I stood out from the rest and caught the attention of our senior rabbi and our cantor. I remember attending with my father an introductory bar mitzvah class with other students and parents that was led by our rabbi. And I remember our rabbi telling me and my dad that my shul had something special in mind for me. This manifested itself in 2 ways. You see, my cantor growing up was the old school type who normally did not work with children or teach Bnai mitzvah students. So for him to formally request that I study and learn with him was an honor. He not only taught me the invaluable skill of reading Torah, and whose version of trope I continue to use and teach today. Don't worry, it sounds exactly like the trope we all know and love. He also began teaching me the skills to lead a Shabbat service. To this day, I still hold the record of reading the entire Torah reading. Back then, we did a full reading instead of the triennial system we use now, in addition to my Haftorah and speech. But it doesn't stop there. I also co-led the entire Musaf service as a 2-part harmony duet with my cantor. And not wanting to be outdone by anyone else, I went to Minyan the next day. By the time of my bar mitzvah, I had been attending a local Jewish day school for about a year, at which I continued to stay throughout high school. During this time, I joined both my synagogue choir and school choir, both of which sang Jewish music, and both of which I often conducted and directed as a student. I distinctly recall rehearsing on the bima during the week when my cantor said he needed to practice with the adults in the choir, and he asked me to bring the kids into another room and practice with them. It was in that moment that I felt the impact my cantor had on me, a moment that began my calling into the cantorate and becoming part of the clergy. From then on, I knew from nothing else. I was going to become a cantor and never deviated from that. I don't know any other 14-year-old who chose their life path that early. During this time and into my college years, I had the privilege to sing with and study with many world-renowned cantors, both in concert and in private lessons. It is still surreal to me that I can now consider them equals and colleagues. Because of the life and career path I set out for myself, I chose to attend college at the Frost School of Music at the University of Miami, where I was lucky enough to get my bachelor's degree in both music and Judaic studies. Memories of my time in college are hitting very close to home for me and my wife, as no more than a week ago, we learned that our son was accepted into the biomedical engineering program at the University of Arizona in Tucson. Luckily, if we end up here in Albuquerque long term, we wouldn't be too far away. And of course, with me being a train and railroad enthusiast, it doesn't hurt being near the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railroad locomotive 2926 that is currently being restored just down the road. During time at UM, my passion for Judaism, music, Jewish music, what led to me consult for the university to create undergraduate pre-Cantor studies curriculum, still in existence today, and it helped recruit potential leaders to enroll in tutorial school at either Jewish Theological Seminary or through Union College. And speaking of which, upon graduating from UM, I promptly went directly to tutorial school at JS, during which I accelerated through their program. While a student, I also held part-time Cantor positions in the city, Maryland, and even Florida for the high days. By this point, I was using my time at JTS to expand my knowledge and fill in the gaps that were missing from my previous training. I had the opportunity to learn from, sing and perform with, and even share meals with some of the most well-known rabbi Cantor and academics in the Jewish world. It was also during this time that I was able to satiate my appetite for Broadway theater by not only seeing shows regularly, but by also studying vocal technique with a long-time Broadway veteran singer and actor who is now also a close friend. And it is through him that I was able to meet and become friends with many performers on Broadway. This association is what eventually led to the formation and production of an annual Jewish Broadway concert review that I produce and star in every year at whatever congregation I am a part of. I would bring in a guest performer from Broadway, and we would perform right here on this bima, all of you. These shows have generally attracted between 400 to 500 people at a time. They also serve as a fundraiser for the congregation, helping bring in profits of at least 5 figures. One of my good friends from Cantor School is currently both a rabbi and a cantor at a large synagogue in LA. We performed our senior recital together at JTS, collaborated as partners on many different projects, and served as a study throughout cantorial school. The difference is that she was in rabbinical school simultaneously as being in cantorial school. When she got ordained, we all joked about we should call her ranter or some amalgamation of the titles such as ranter rabbi. Back then, I never fathomed that I would do anything else but cantor. But most recently, our entire world was faced with something so horrific and unprecedented that it made most of us take stock and re-examine a lot of components in our life, and that being COVID-19. During the beginning of the pandemic, when I was officiating every service from home, I had a lot of time to think and reflect on not only the state of the world at the time, but also the state and future of Jewish synagogue life. During this time, and the multitude of encouragement and support from my family, I received another calling, that of becoming a rabbi. And since the pandemic started, I have been researching distance learn programs to become trained as Morenu Harav, our rabbi, our teacher. During reflection, I particularly remember several long periods of time where I officially served as kolbo, the spiritual leader of my previous congregations. Whether the rabbi at the time was on extended vacation or whether the congregation was in between rabbis, I was always called upon in an official capacity to serve as the sole leader and Mara de Atra. And it was during these experiences that I learned about myself, the calling and desire, nay, the need to become a rabbi. After spending the last 6 years in Phoenix, my family and I have observed the ever-changing values and evolution of the global Jewish world. Some communities have aligned their values and priorities with the rest of the world while still maintaining their strong Jewish identity and tradition, while other communities are struggling to catch up. As the relationship between my family and yours continues to deepen and strengthen, learning Bnai Israel is a place of mercy, diversity, openness, and kindness. Core values that we have been searching for in vain from our previous communities. Every 4 years, when our country goes through a presidential election, the topic always comes up the first 50 days. Mr. President, what will you accomplish the first 50 days? What's your plan the first days in office? I will give insight to this question as if it applies to the spiritual leadership here at Israel. One of the closest friends is the Jewish professional world, one that I had fortunate to work with while I was on my feet in my first position in Florida. That introduced to a concept called relational Judaism. The idea is that Jewish engagement within the community occurs based on developing friendships, relationships between people, instead of expecting them to join a Jewish community due to social, economic, or religious obligation. This is exactly how I have defined my cantorate and role as a member of the clergy. To meet with the rabbi or cantor to ask a series of profound Jewish questions pertaining to your life? Great! Let's go and have lunch down the street or grab a coffee and have a great conversation. Are you unsure about how you will fit in with the congregation? No problem. I'm having a small get-together at my house for both new members and some longtime members. Why don't you come and meet people? Are you unsure if you want to participate in the community? Because there may not be a lot of people your age. Don't worry about it. I'm hosting a happy hour event next week at the wine bar down the street. Come and join us. If you haven't gotten the gist, I would spend my first 50 days at Bnai Israel getting to know each and every one of you and establishing relationships. But I would not spend just 50 days. I would not spend just 100 days, nor spend just 200 days. I would spend each and every day slowly getting to know all of you, and not just all of you in the quantitative sense, but all of you in the absolute sense. And by doing this, I wholeheartedly believe that as your spiritual leader, or better yet, your spiritual partner, we can truly imbue the notion of Matovu Ohalecha Yaakov, Mishkenotecha Yisrael. How goodly are your tents, O Jacob, your dwellings of Israel. Come and enter herein. Shabbat Shalom. We will continue now with Aleinu on page 56. I invite everyone to please rise if you are able. Aleinu labech la'adon ha'olam gedula leotzer bereshit shelo asanu kegoyei ha'aratzot velo samanu kemishpechot ha'adama shelo sam telkeinu kahem וגור עלינו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשחקים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסר הארץ, ומושב יקרו במים ממעל, ושכינתו שכינה זו Eloheinu einod et malkeinu estato kakatu betorato be'adayo v'hashevota elevavecha ki Adonai hu ha'Elohim b'shamayim mima'al ve'al ha'aretz mitach einod al ken kabbalat Elohim. ככתוב בתורתך אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו Before we recite the mourner's Kaddish, I would actually like to ask everyone to turn to page 59, since tonight begins Rosh Chodesh Elul. It also begins the season of repentance. And it is customary to recite parts of Psalm 27 during this lead up to the high holidays and, of course, through the high holidays. If you notice that several lines down from the top, there is a bolded section of Psalm 27. And so I would like to share a melody for this section with you. You might recognize it. If you do, please sing along. And the translation of this is that one thing I ask of Adonai, this is what I seek, to dwell in the house of God all the days of my life, to behold God's peacefulness and to pray in God's sanctuary. Achat sha'alti me'et Adonai ota avakesh. Achat sha'alti me'et Adonai ota avakesh. Shivti beveit Adonai kol yemei Lachazot benoam Adonai ulvaker beheichalo. Lachazot benoam Adonai ulvaker beheichalo. This Shabbat, we remember the following individuals from our congregation, from our community, that we remember as their yurtzeit has occurred this week. Frida Bromberg, Natalie Lipman, Sandy Gollins, Mitchell Hoover, Amy Elizabeth Williams, Steve Kaufman, Jacob Nathan Feinberg, Jacob Israel Burton, Julie Brick, and Frida Renzel. And at this moment, if anybody else has someone they are saying Kaddish for, please take a moment to remember them in your mind and in your heart. Those saying Kaddish or observing your site, please rise if you are able. Page 58, the mourner's Kaddish. Yit gadal v'yit kadash shemei rabbah, be'alma divara kirutei ve'amli malchut, Bechayechon v'yomechon u'bechayei v'chol Beit Yisrael ba'agala u'vizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shemei rabba mevarach le'alam alamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitmaseh v'yithadar v'yithaleh v'yithalal shemei dekudesha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shalama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
Thank you, Cantor. This morning I had the pleasure of walking the Bosque Trail with Jonathan Angress, Cantor Angress, and his lovely wife, Myra, who I failed to announce this before. And you're welcome to, we had a wonderful conversation all the way. And the only thing that kept us, we would still be on the trail if it wasn't for some mosquitoes that were attacking poor Myra. And so we decided to go back, which is probably a good thing, otherwise we'd probably be beyond Bernalillo right now. So let's go on to what is happening tomorrow. And remember, services will start tomorrow at 9 o'clock, rather than usual 9:30. And at 6:30 is our dinner. That's by reservations. I hope you made reservations for that. At 7:30, this is beyond dinner. This is for everybody. Study with Kabbalat, Cantor, Angress. Everyone is invited to that. At 8:30 is the family-friendly Kabbalah, also led by Cantor, Kabbalat, Angress. So it's a busy day. It's a long way, so try to catch your breath, and we should be able to have a very nice crowd, I hope, for all the things that are happening on tomorrow. Sunday is also a very important day because at 5:30 we are all going to assemble as a congregation to make our selection for rabbinical leadership for the next coming years. So please be here for that very, very important vote. And now for some other announcements, which are Sisterhood opening Shabbat is Thursday, September 1st, and that will feature Dawn Stewart Thompson speaking on my Jewish geography, and reservations need to be made very soon because we're warming up the ovens as we speak for our dinner. So please make your reservations. If you haven't done that, please see me or me, and we'll really have a good crowd for that. It's going to be a wonderful dinner under the direction of Chef Chris Buckhalter, who I know quite well. Wednesday, September 21st is the joint performance with, joint presentation with Hadassah of Albuquerque, Faith Kellerman on Zoom, and that is going to start at 1 o'clock here at the show. So you'll see the rest of the announcements that are on the table downstairs, and you'll be able to partake of that. One other announcement is our Torah dedication, which is coming up September 18th. And you'll be getting a notice of that in the mail this week. And it's a very, very special day. It's a time for everybody here to really partake of a mitzvah, that of inscribing, with the help of a sultan, a letter in the Torah. It's a big deal. It doesn't happen every day. It doesn't happen every year. It happens only once in a lifetime. So please be aware that we're sending out a mailing this week, and please do whatever the letter urges you to do. I'm not going to go into all the details now, but it's going to be a very, very wonderful event for our show, for the presence of our show, and mainly for the future of our show as well. I'm so indebted to the Bobbrick family for this wonderful gift of a Torah scroll for our congregation. And I'm not going to sing, and I'm not going to play the guitar, so I'm just going to wish you all a very good Shabbos, and we'll see you downstairs. Yes? Oh, well, yeah. We want to do that now, rather than downstairs. Okay. This is the committee speaking, so I'm not on the committee. So we're going to pay for Angress. So think of you ask to come up here to ask the question, or I don't think we have any mics around. Do we? Jimmy, do we have any microphones? Okay, so. Yes, we do. Okay, great. So let's do that, and if you don't want to stay in your seat, go ahead, or you can just speak in a very loud voice to ask your question of the Cantor. Don't be shy.
Thank you. Regarding religious school, can you talk about your experience at your previous positions and how you work with the religious school and the students there, and how you would like that position to look if you were the religious leader here?
Mm-hmm. So in both of my previous positions, I was involved in the religious school very heavily. At the very least, every Sunday I was there doing something. if I was leading tefillah, or if I went into a class to do a special song session, or to even just teach about Judaism or Judaica, I find it very important that I would have a strong presence in the religious school. Toward the past few weeks leading up to my visit now, I've had several conversations with the Hebrew school director here, Sarah, about that importance and about, the need for our students to be able to relate to the religious leader, not just as, oh, that's the person I see at my bar mitzvah or beyond that, but from a very, young age. To be able to develop a relationship. The relational Judaism component of this does not apply to just adults, but applies to every child as well.
Next question, please.
You mentioned that you were studying to become a Kabbalah. Are you still studying, or did you finish that?
No, I'm still studying. I'm still researching different programs. Between COVID and between the economy and different things going on, there's a little bit of back and forth to figure out the proper program, but it's still in progress. I'm looking at the Zoom monitor over here.
Jesse, please ask your question.
Hi, this is Jesse Collishman. Welcome. Coming to you from Long Island right now, and so glad to have this Zoom opportunity. So I wanted to ask if you're planning to stay after the Kiddush lunches on Shabbat to say the Birkat Hamazon, and maybe also to offer some teachings from time to time. Thank you.
Yes. For those that maybe didn't hear the question, the speaker was a little muffled, was that would I be willing on Shabbat to stay, through the end of Kiddush to recite Birkat Hamazon and to maybe, offer some teachings or discussions and things like that. That's all I've ever done in any of my positions. And it was actually something in my previous position in Phoenix that Birkat Hamazon was not recited at the end of Kiddush, and during my time there we instituted reciting Hamazon, and not everybody was for that, but most people did, and people enjoyed it. And have a post-Kiddush, small discussion or class or something, absolutely I would be willing to do that. The whole idea of Shabbat is not just to pray, but to come and learn and to come and socialize.
Another question, please. Alan.
Cantor, how do you feel about parceling out parts of the service to maybe our children and our adults who know how to do those parts of the service?
The more the merrier. The more the merrier. I don't want to give too much away as to what might happen tonight or even tomorrow, but I always love sharing the bima. And not only do I like to share the bima, especially with children, but when they come up here, I want them in front of the microphone. I like the image of them standing next to me, but they come up here, I will move over here. So I want them to be front and center, and of course, adults who like to participate, who want to regularly help lead the service, I am here to take away from you. Yes, I do love davening and singing, and I would do that most of the time, but I'm also here to engage you whichever way possible, and if that means coming up here to them, please come here and dive.
I know this job. What do you like about
We actually did chat about this a little bit earlier, before services started. So as I mentioned actually in my speech, that out of the values and core ideas that my family and I are looking for are lacking in the current community that we are a part of, the current community that we live in. And so when I saw that this opportunity in Albuquerque came up, we know that Albuquerque is a more dynamic and a more diverse community, and so we wanted to explore that. And upon researching Bnai Israel, even before we started talking and developing this relationship, we saw that things are much more aligned to what we are looking for here than we have seen in other places.
Next question. You'll have an opportunity tomorrow to ask additional questions or even to approach Cantor Angress during our Kiddush downstairs. So if it's okay with everyone and no more questions, let's finish our service.
Oh, wonderful. At this point, I mentioned before different traditions and different things. Some communities will end Friday services with Adon Olam with Yal. I would like to try to end with Adon Olam, particularly because I know there are a few, I did see a few, they were here. People are 18. I like to ask for them to enjoy me on to sing Adon Olam. And you find Adon Olam on page 111 in the door, not printed Friday night, unfortunately. Okay, give me one. I always when I youth up here, I ask which melody for Adon Olam I want to do. Guys, let them choose. Okay, I think this is a version we do in camp. You guys come and center, please. Okay. You guys are, here we go. Adon Shema b'tem kol tirni b'dei avem so kol ha'em shemon ha'pareki ha'kol levadim lochna v'ave v'ove v'yeh v'varach v'echad ein sheni ha'sholeh ha'irei beli tachli v'los v'ham v'eli chai go'ali v'tzorchev li be'etzara Beonisi umanosi menachnosi beyom ekra beyado avkid ruchi be'eti sham ve'ha'ira v'im ruchi geviati Adonai li velo ira. Thank you guys, good job. Awesome, excuse me. Okay, please join us downstairs for Oneg, and we wish you a Shabbat Shalom. Please come back tomorrow for more fun. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. And Shabbat Shalom to everyone on Zoom and online as well. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Good. It is. He's like my mother. Doesn't want to turn his fan on.
Okay.
It'll be cool tomorrow.
And, you know,
I can't argue.
the stage lights.
Yeah. We'll be up here for tomorrow. And yeah, very good.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.